Don't look now. Kevin Hart, maybe trying to stretch out his acting muscles. The Wedding Ringer is the name of the movie. Josh Gad, Kevin Hart, starring in this movie about a man who's getting married and doesn't have a best man, so he makes one up with the help of Kevin Hart, who apparently has an entire business built on this model. I guess it's a thing where men don't have friends, and so they have to invent them and then hire somebody to play them at their wedding. That's the entire concept of the movie. It's a concept that's kind of wrought with setup for comedy, and at the end of the day, I think that's where they wanted to go. Big, broad, raunchy comedy for Josh Gad and Kevin Hart called The Wedding Ringer. Let's talk about what works with this movie first, and it primarily comes down to the two leads. They're actually pretty good. I'm a Josh Gad fan, not just because he's the amazing voice of Olaf in Frozen, because he's a funny guy. He's had bit parts in other movies that I can't remember off the top of my head. Movies, because the movies are pretty much mediocre, but he adds a sense of genuineness to them. Even when it's a broad comedy, there's something very real about his personality and who he is, and that carries on here. I thought he was good. It's nice to see him stepping into more of a leading role. Although make no mistake, it's Kevin Hart's movie. He's kind of the name behind it. His kind of quick-paced, rat-a-tat-tat machine gun humor that he's known for is certainly all over this thing. But what's the interesting thing here about Kevin is he really is trying to become a little bit better of an actor, and I think he succeeds in some ways. This is a movie where the heart of it actually kind of works. Not a lot else does, and we'll get there here in a second, but the heart part where they're talking about, friendship and the backstory of these people and how they get together and what that means and what it means to have somebody who is a best friend or a best man and what's real and what's fake, all those themes and those plays, they actually seem to work really well in this movie when those moments come up. So I was actually really impressed with those guys in the heart of this movie. However, as I mentioned, not much else about it actually works very well. Let's start with everybody else. The supporting cast is full of people that you may have seen before, but probably don't know who they are. They're adequate for what they're asked to do, but they don't add to a sense of family like I think they want to. They want to create this ensemble comedy cast, I think, and it just doesn't succeed at that level for me. I was always waiting for really just kind of the Josh and Kevin stuff to take off. So kind of the surrounding cast of best men characters, or groomsmen, I guess I should say, characters, didn't quite work for me overall. And also, this movie tries way too hard to be too raunchy. Some raunch-coms succeed in their over-the-top humor because they know their tone and who they are. But this one felt like it didn't have to go there to really succeed on the humor. In fact, the humor that fell the flattest for me were those moments where it tried to go over the top and be really risque and push the boundaries and those kind of things. And I just didn't think those really worked in this movie at all. And so it gives the movie a really cheap sense of itself. Like, the movie feels a lot cheaper, I think, than it needs to be. And I think that has to do with not trusting its story. There's an interesting concept and a story that could be here if it's developed in a little bit of a more thematic way rather than just a little bit more of kind of that over-the-top pragmatic way. So that's where I think the movie really falls apart, and it falls apart often and a little bit too much. Overall, I think The Wedding Ringer can be a fun watch. Like, you might have a good time going to it, but I don't think it's going to be one of those classic comedies that you ever see kind of in people's lists with quotable lines and that kind of stuff. I think just pretty much you're going to be looking at the performances of Josh and Kevin as kind of the highlights, and then everything else just kind of meh. In fact, that's the overall grade I would give it. I'd say right around a C. So that's The Wedding Ringer. You can check out more reviews, of course, here at the site. I'll put some links up probably over this way that you can look at, click on those and see what's going on. Also, if you would please subscribe, I'd very much appreciate that too. Really enjoying the recent kind of being able to shoot these here and get your comments, and love the comments that are coming on the best of list. By the way, you can check that out. Maybe I'll throw a link up to that as well. My top 15 movies of the year, my video, and then I have the top 41 movies of the year up at the website. That's yourmoviefriend.com. As always, thank you for watching, and please subscribe.